Hello, Fast LEGO Studios here, and welcome to the 10th week of building the LEGO life-sized Spider-Man sculpture. And here we are, guys, on week 10 of building this massive LEGO sculpture here. I've made quite some progress in last week's episode. Just as I finished off building the shoulders here, I got the neck in place and as well attached the head of Spider-Man right the way onto his neck here, which makes him stand just at about 5 foot 10 inches, or as a conversion to that, it'll be 70 inches tall, which is the life-sized scale of Spider-Man, which is quite impressive that he stands with using no glue and no armatures whatsoever. But going back to last week's episode here, what I have done as well is I've built out the arm just about slightly, but will be continued in this week's episode, just as I'm going to be building downwards here, and maybe even beginning to get this arm built downwards as well. Not only that, I'm hoping to as well even get the hands attached right the way into place, but time will tell in this week's episode. But with all that being said, guys, let's get to the progress updates here. And here we are, guys, with the first progress update of the week here, just as I've gotten a little bit of progress off to the arm here. You can see on how the model just kind of goes more off to the side and nicely kind of curves down this way. If we take a look off to the side of the sculpture here, you can see that a little bit better, as the elbow is right here and the model just starts curving this way just about there. Apart from that there, if we take a look at the pattern of the suit here, you can see on how the red and blue stops just about here, and the red with the webbing pattern is going to continue with the forearm down this way just about like so. Now for now, what I'm going to be planning to do here is to begin building the other arm, and the reason behind that is because I want to get both of the arms just nicely into their location, so then the center of gravity doesn't shift in any direction and no problems occur from there on out. Now, speaking of problems, as I was building this arm of the sculpture itself started falling over because it was rocking back and forth, and the weight of the sculpture played a pretty big role in that as it gained acceleration more and more, making the ankles of the sculpture loosen up more and more as well, and so it started falling forward. Luckily, I caught it and restabilized the entire model, and considering that I'm using no glue and no armatures, this is quite a challenge to build, as you may notice, to get this kind of height of the sculpture being 5 foot 10 and not making it fall forward. But with all that being said, guys, let's get to the progress update here. And here we are, guys, with the progress update, just as I've gotten a little bit of progress off to the arm here. Now, taking a closer look at the arm, you notice some similarities between this arm here and this arm here. In particular, some of the similarities are on how the webbing pattern here nicely is corresponding to this one if we translate it horizontally, as well as the blue here. If we translate it horizontally once again, it'll be equal to the area on this side here. Apart from that there, the main difference between both of these arms is their orientation. And by orientation, I mean that this arm is more towards the back, as this one's more straight on. But really, apart from that there, the height of each arm here, you can see, is just about equal, which does mean the center of gravity should just about be at the right location, though this one has a little bit more growing to do. But with all that being said, guys, let's continue building Spider-Man's arm here. And here we are, guys, with the progress update, just as I've gotten a little bit of progress right off to the arm here. But taking a quick look around the entire sculpture here, you can see on how both of the arms are nice and level with one another. That is now quite a nice sight to look at, but once again, taking a focus onto the arm that we just built here, you'd see some of the webbing lines just nicely starting to flow downwards, as most of the forearm is going to continue going out this way. Now, one challenge that I'm definitely going to be having as I'm going to be building more and more of this area is going to get thinner and thinner, making these 11 webbing lines much more compact and compact. As you can see, there's one brick spacing between some of these to fit all 11 webbing lines into this forearm right about here. Now, according to LEGO geometry, it's quite hard to get all this to fit in, but I managed to do it, and hopefully I can continue getting this consistency of how it just nicely kind of flows into the area, just about like so. Not to mention the stability that I'm going to be needing to attach into this forearm to keep a nice decent stability so that none of the bricks kind of start falling off or anything like that. That's my hope for right now, but we did manage to complete building a 5 foot 10 LEGO sculpture using no glue and no armatures whatsoever, so it shouldn't be too much of a challenge for us. But for now, what I'm hoping to do is to continue once again to build this arm, just as I want to get a little bit more progress off to this arm here, and then alter back to building this arm here. But with all that being considered, guys, let's begin building. And here we are, guys, with the next update, just as I've gotten a little bit of destruction off to the arm here. You can see it's not so much of a positive update as much it is of a negative, and the fact towards why all this broke off was I was attaching a Lego brick in the upwards direction onto the arm, and as I was doing so, that did not result in anything good, as the entire chunk of the arm started falling off, so what I had to do was to reattach it back on. But sooner or later, what happened as I was attaching that arm, chunks of the arm itself just started falling off and hitting the floor and shattering. And so as a result, this is what happened here. You can see all the bricks scattered all over the floor, all the chunks that started falling off the sculpture. And yeah, next week's episode, what I'm hoping to do is really repair all this and continue back to the positive building where I can get back and attach the arm and the hand and so on and so forth. But for this week's episode, I ran out of time, so that will be continued to next week's episode. But before we go out into the outro here, I want to take a quick look around the back of Spider-Man, just so we've not taken a look at it in this week's episode yet. So without further ado, guys, let's take a look at the back of Spider-Man here. And taking a look around the back of Spider-Man here, you can see the arm that we built in this week's episode, with all the bricks, plates, webbing pattern, and so on and so forth, which does make a nice design going upwards and downwards, whichever way you prefer it. But in next week's episode, I'm hoping to take this design and mirror it off into this arm here, and see where it really takes me from there on out. But taking a step back here, and taking a look at the sculpture in general here, you can see on how one area of the sculpture does nicely transition into another. But with all that being considered, guys, let's move out into the outro here. And here we are, guys, at the end of week 10 here, just as I've gotten some very good progress this week in terms of on how the arm got built off, though we did have some setbacks on how the other arm did break off and the ankles broke as well. The ankles were a very minor setback in terms of a week's episode, and it was a really nice, easy snap back into place and done there. The arm, though, is going to require a little bit more patience and a little bit more time to really work on, though it shouldn't be too hard, and as well as the webbing pattern, I want to go back to it and kind of revisit the design and so on and so forth, so that does open up a new opportunity there. Another good note from there on out is really the arm itself. I had some very nice building experience on the other arm here. Everything went together nice and smoothly and no destruction. Very lucky on that arm there. Hopefully it continues in that type of motion, just going nice and smoothly in terms of the building process from here on out. So stay tuned for next week's episode, just so I'm going to be rebuilding that arm there and getting more progress hopefully on everything, getting back on track, getting that arm as well, nearly complete maybe even. So stay tuned for next week's episode. But with all that being said, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new, like the video, comment in the comment section of what you think of this massive Lego sculpture. And with all that being considered, guys, keep on building, and bye.